Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. It's the wonders of being able to say that to a global audience. I'm Yonit Sirkin, and welcome to our next installment of the MassChallenge Innovation Summit. You know, when we launched this program just a few months ago, we tried to bring together thought leaders around different industries who would help set the stage and really have a meaningful and substantive conversation about where different industries were going. The COVID crisis has hit the entire world in very dramatic and different ways, and each sector is really looking at those solutions and at their recovery through a different set of lenses. We started off talking to the digital health and healthcare industry, understanding that their challenges were now a different set of needs and a different set of tools that they had at their employ. We looked at how professionals and employees were going to connect with one another in order to keep our enterprises growing and building, even as our physical space needs and nature, way of connecting, were changing fundamentally. And today, we're speaking to one of the most dramatically affected and transformed industries ever. The travel industry, tourism industry, and aviation industry are all going through really fundamental shifts and behavioral changes of their customer base and of the regulatory environment, of the expectations from those customers, and of course, for the way that each of these entities actually connect with one another and with additional growth opportunities. And so I'm really excited that we're here for this conversation today, where we're bringing together leaders of the aviation industry, the travel and tourism industry, the hospitality industry, to be able to talk about where this industry is going and how they have been able to manage through and with these very competing crises of both a health crisis, a global health pandemic, as well as the financial market effects thereof. I'm excited to invite our first speaker, Carolyn Kremins. She's the president of Skift, a leading media entity in the travel and tourism space. And Carolyn will be in conversation with Juha Jarvinen, the Chief Commercial Officer of Virgin Atlantic. Carolyn, I'm going to welcome you up. Thank you for leading this conversation. And Skift has really been at the cutting edge of the future of tourism and travel in the world. So we're really excited to hear your perspective and Juha's as well. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Yonit. Good evening, Israel. Good afternoon, UK. Good morning, US. And hello to any other time zones I may be missing. I'm so happy to be here today to talk about the future of travel. But does anyone have a crystal ball? Because mine is a little broken. Travel, as you know, has been one of the hardest hit sectors in the world during COVID. And in particular, airlines have felt the seismic impact. So I'm so happy to be here, to be joined with Juha Jarvinen, who is the Chief Commercial Officer of Virgin Atlantic. Juha, you have spent your career in commercial aviation, previously with SAS and Finnair, and currently as the President of Board of Directors at Apex. And for those of you who don't know, that is the Airline Passenger Experience Association. So let's just kick it off. Can you just share a little bit about your background with our audience? Why did you get into travel and specifically aviation?
Thanks, Carolyn. So nice to be here, and thanks all of you for joining for this event. Yes, aviation, good question. Why would you come into aviation? When I was a young boy, actually first time flew when I was 16. So you could say that was actually quite late in coming up in the air. So until then, I was always dreaming about going to other markets, going to new countries, originally from Finland. So when I started flying as of age of 16, ever since then, I always felt the passion of seeing new countries, meeting new people, learning about new cultures. And I think that fundamental reason why people travel for new experiences, meeting people, that fundamental need has always been there and will be going forward.
Yeah, I don't know why you would get into this industry unless you have that deep passion because you are always out and about. And for someone who has globetrotted for a living, how have you adjusted to just staying put? It's not easy, right?
I have to say, in the beginning, actually, I quite enjoyed it, actually being home for more than 2 or 3 days in a row. But of course, I think longer run, I think we can all agree who's online at the moment that it was great to probably be sort of quiet down, but at the same time, we have the urgency to travel out again, and hopefully all on Virgin Atlantic, of course.
Of course. Same for me. I was always living in an airport and on an airplane, and all of a sudden to be home, it felt good for the first couple of months, and now I'm ready to go. But obviously we can't quite yet. But let's dive in. So when anything big happens, right, we can typically recall where we were and when it hit. And I remember exactly when COVID hit home for us at Skift. It was the end of January. We just held a very successful 2020 Megatrend event in Singapore. And shortly thereafter, we got a letter from the Grand Hyatt where we held the event, and they notified us that the function next to ours the same evening, there was an outbreak of COVID-19, and we needed to inform our guests of that. And so that was that moment for us. When was that moment? When did it become clear to you that travel was going to be severely affected by COVID-19? And what went through your mind?
I would say first in sort of early January, when we saw, of course, the outbreak growing in China. And of course, we fly daily to both Shanghai and Hong Kong. So increasingly, we started monitoring the events in Asia, and especially in China, of course. But I think all of us were actually quite naive to start with, that we thought it's going to remain a localized issue to start with. Of course, we started preparing that it might spread elsewhere in the world. We were forced to stop flying to Shanghai, actually on the 2nd of February. So that was a concrete step that we took as a bit of a shock, that we actually were not allowed to fly anymore to China. So that was 2nd of February. But I would say, like you mentioned, there's a specific date. There is also a specific date for me. That was 20th of March. Friday, I was at the gym, Virgin Active in London. I was running on treadmill, and there was live TV just ahead of me where the Prime Minister came out and said, as of tonight, by midnight, all the bars, restaurants, and gyms has to close. And I was looking around me, there was almost no people anymore in the gym either. So that was the last hours of any gym being open. And I think that moment really hit me, at least, that this is not any normal situation. Now we're entering a new phase where none of us knew what we're going to face going forward.
I'm just curious. Oh, I was going to say, I'm just curious, when you found out the gyms would be closed, did you run an extra mile or anything like that?
Yeah, actually, I thought I'm going to stick to my exercise. I'm not going to have a few hours to go, so I will definitely exercise.
Right. Love the dedication. In any case, so here we are, and you know, I know we all have to think about our leadership, and I'm just curious, how has your leadership style changed as a result?
It's quite interesting that when you work from home, and actually, I think we can all agree that actually we have added hours to our workday. So many people say that we have become more efficient. We can process more meetings than we've done in the past. But definitely, as you said, the challenge is that how do you lead the people, how you lead the teams when you actually haven't physically met them for, now many of them I haven't met for up to 5 months or 4 to 5 months. It has definitely required much more face time in terms of through technology, calling people more, making sure that we regularly brief people. We have had hundreds of people on furlough for months. They have not been actively working, so we've been regularly holding staff briefings remotely. And actually, the feedback that we get, actually, they feel that it's actually even more personal than when we do it through the screen on regular basis, instead of being in a big city sort of town hall briefing in an office space. So actually, many people actually have also enjoyed it. But no question about it. It is tough for the leadership of teams, and it can't be the permanent setup, at least for us. We do still need to meet face to face. I don't believe that we can completely go remote, even though we might give up offices or we might reduce offices, but we need that face to face interaction regularly. But it was possible, as we have, of course, had a very tight and very healthy corporate culture until now at Virgin Atlantic.
Right, right. So this industry, we've been here before, not to this degree, right? But we've had significant struggles, 9/11 and whatnot. This definitely feels different, but let's address the elephant in the room. Virgin Atlantic filed for Chapter 15 bankruptcy protection in the US, and it undergoes a private recap plan in the UK. So what does this mean for Virgin Atlantic? What does it mean for your customers? What does it mean for you as a business?
Straight away back in April, when we saw that this is no quick fix in terms of a crisis, that when we saw that this is a longer term issue which will have a multi-year impact in travel demand, we did a number of scenarios depending how quickly we will recap back to the old traffic levels. And it was clear from, regardless how you turn the numbers around, it was 2023, which we forecast that we'll be back to 2019 levels. And of course, when you have that reality in front of you and no prospect of flying for a couple of 2-3 months ahead of you, we then decided very early on in the crisis to actually go to a drawing board all virtually, to start thinking what could Virgin Atlantic be if it's resized, reshaped in terms of both size and the operations that we have. And then we came to the conclusion that we need to quite dramatically resize the airline. So we entered into a process in early May where we have now, unfortunately, have reduced our staff levels by 35%. We have reduced our aircraft size quite considerably, but we have increased our efficiency by up to 20% in terms of our production. And of course, we had to strengthen our financing. And therefore we, together with our existing shareholders, Virgin Group, Sir Richard Branson's holding company, and Delta Airlines, the US-based airline, to look for options. How can we further refinance the company? And proudly, on the 14th of July this year, we were able to publicize the private solvent recapitalization, which then in the UK, which goes through a court process. It's worth £1.2 billion. So it's a sizable recapitalization. And as part of that, there's a Chapter 15 filing in the US. And unfortunately, in the media, it turned out into a declaration of bankruptcy, which was completely incorrectly reported. So it is an administrative process that we need to go through, and it's not Chapter 11, it's Chapter 15. So it's a different process. So we are tracking according to the plan. So by early September, that's the target. We are out of the court process, and then we are refinanced. So we are in a much better position to move to the next phase, which is of course the restart of the operations.
Yeah. Okay. So it's basically a milestone towards securing the future.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know here in the States, stateside, the CARES Act comes to its expiration date at the end of or beginning of October. So we'll see what happens here on this side of the pond.
And of course, how quickly we come out of this crisis. And of course, I think we can all agree that it has lasted longer than any of us probably originally forecasted for.
Yeah, yeah. So many businesses are using this time to take stock and evaluate, making necessary changes. For Skift, for example, we shut down all of our offices completely, and we're now a globally distributed company, and we will be working remotely for the future. So you've had time to pause and reflect and to pivot. What does Virgin Atlantic's post-COVID strategy look like? Have there been any major changes?
So as part of the resizing and restructures, we have resized, and, like I mentioned earlier, the 35% reduction in our workforce. We also had a sizable reduction in our fleet size, so we removed roughly 11 aircraft. But what we have, at the same time, we have increased the efficiency of the production. So we have reduced the overall cost efficiency of our fleet and the network over 20%. So in a moment of crisis, it really gives you a unique opportunity to exercise some of the visions and plans you had, which you probably had sort of a 1 to 2 year plan to implement them. I would say that now we have decided to implement all of those in 3 months, 4 months, which of course is a tremendous exercise for the whole company, but it was a necessity to do. In London, we have now concentrated all our operations to Heathrow. We used to operate also out of Guesty, which is the second airport in London. So again, that has improved the efficiency by moving into one airport and then in addition operating out of Manchester. And then of course, it's really all about how do we find new ways of working. And just like you said, it is about remote working as well. We are resizing our office space. We will still have a head office. So we have not 100% given up our head office yet, but we will be resizing it. Instead of having 2 buildings, we will have 1, and more people need to work remotely. And I think actually many of us, including myself, I'm actually quite looking forward to it, more permanently working more remote, because it's actually, I feel, more efficient. It doesn't move away from the fact that you want to meet face to face as well, but it does make your overall work week more efficient when you don't always have to go to the office Monday to Friday, as an example.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. One of the audience questions that came through is about ticket pricing for the next 12 months. So it looks like some people are starting to think about getting away and want to know if they can maybe find a bargain.
Good question. We do forecasts for the future. I would say so far, airlines have been quite responsible in terms of realistically adjusting the capacity, which is on sale. Because of course, we all know that it's going to be a challenging period, at least for a year and a half to go. So far, the airlines have been quite rational in terms of reducing capacity, which has reduced the need to lower the fares dramatically. But it's going to remains to be seen how the winter season will go. There will be definitely pressure on the pricing if the volumes don't increase. So I would still recommend that it's worth booking early enough so that you secure your seat. But let's see how the winter comes out. But it's going to be a lot of pressure from all the airlines to not to oversupply the market, because that's the worst thing that all of us can do when we all squeezed cash-wise. We cannot enter a huge price war. That would be crazy for the industry.
Yeah, great. So when we look forward, what does airline travel look like? Let's take, for example, business travel. There's a lot of debate about this, and Ed Bastian, who you know is the CEO of Delta, who has a 49% stake in Virgin Atlantic, said in a recent earnings call that business travel may never come back to where it was. So that must be a pretty big part of your revenues. What's your point of view on that?
For the remaining of the year, we definitely do forecast that the business traffic will not come back.
Yeah.
That is the reality that we are calculating our own forecasts, especially company internal travel. Probably going to be the most hit. I think that's at least the feedback when we talk to corporates, both in the UK and US. The internal meetings, you will permanently reduce. The CFOs have now seen how you can actually do many of the meetings remotely. So internal meetings will be definitely reduced. Same goes for conferences. Those will be, we'll see, hopefully next spring we get some of the conferences back. But in sort of longer term, I do believe as well that the business traffic will reduce. What is the percentage? Is it 15%? Is it 20%? Short term, of course, a lot bigger than that. But we do need to prepare that it's going to reduce. But at the same time, every single company gives us the feedback that you do need to meet your customers. You do need to have the prospects of new business opportunities. That need will never disappear. And we've managed to survive this period now due to the fact that we knew one another and we had the business contacts, but you can't for years and years operate without meeting people. So we believe that business traffic will slowly come back, but it will not come back to the same levels for foreseeable future. Yeah,
I absolutely agree with you as well. And I think that maybe 22 will start to hopefully round the corner on that. So our travel tech editor, Sean O'Neill, he writes a lot on the explosion of technology in this sector. And especially now, you're seeing so many new types of technologies that are allowing for contactless travel. We started to see, you know, the facial and iris scanning, and Amadeus has an airport pay now. I know Lufthansa is using that. There's another company that I read about recently. We wrote about them, Quant Energy. It's a Silicon Valley company, and it actually provides crowd management sensing, and they measure the location and distance between travelers, and an alarm will go off if they spot, you know, a group together, if they're too close together. So I know we have a lot of entrepreneurs in the audience, and innovation expert. So how is Virgin Atlantic thinking about technology in the wake of COVID? Have you implemented new technology during this time, or is there anything in particular that you're looking at?
We have our technology roadmap together with Delta, so we actually plan all of the technology together with them. We have not implemented any new features or services during this time yet, but what I strongly believe going forward, and I would challenge the audience to get back to us with great ideas how to do it, but I believe going forward that health and safety or the well-being of the passengers will increasingly raise to a new level. After 9/11 or other crises which are more security related, the whole travel chain changed. The airport security, we all paid attention to the safety and security. But now I believe the next trend will be the well-being of passengers. And just like you referred that example, that if we could have a travel buddy type of an app as part of Virgin Atlantic's app, we can provide that kind of service where you can try to avoid some crowded spaces or give a travel advice in a certain city. Because we do see a trend, at least on the leisure side, where people are more likely to avoid big cities. They want to go to a more calmer locations, beach locations for their holiday instead of going to a city break. So how could we provide customers with travel buddy type of advice where if you are in New York, which areas should you avoid potentially for overcrowding, or what areas you would recommend or places to see. So I think that kind of travel buddy type of service would be very keen to look into, because the problem with this crisis currently, it's about fear, and how do we manage sure that we convince customers to trust in themselves in a way to travel and trust the service providers, because it's a fear factor which we need to manage going forward. It's a health crisis and an acute one, but the fear factor will not disappear for a while. We'll be increasingly alerted to every single potential signals of a viruses anywhere in the world for a while. And I think it is really to provide support for your travel, because you will have a need for travel, but you want to have that reliability that somebody will alert you if things are happening around you. So it's a travel buddy type of a service, which I believe that the airlines would be, and travel companies would be very keen to look into.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I just read the last day or two, Virgin Atlantic, along with some of the other Britain-based airlines, wrote to your Prime Minister urging for coronavirus testing in the airports, right? So, yeah.
Yes, because UK unfortunately has been an unfortunate example of reintroducing quarantine, taking it away, taking it back again. It's been very difficult for the UK travel industry and the airlines to plan going forward, as we have reintroduced some of the travel quarantines in a very short time. So what we believe that, like Germany is a good example where they have introduced COVID testing on arrival. So we actively, together with other airlines, together with our competitor airlines and the airports, jointly teamed up to make sure that we could, as an industry, try to influence the UK government to introduce COVID-19 testing. And hopefully by then, convincing the US side as well to open the borders, because the big challenge is UK, US is one of the biggest travel markets there is in the world. UK is extremely dependent on US imports and exports. And if we can't restart the United States, it will have a huge impact on the UK economy, especially now considering Brexit. It's just a few months away.
Right. We have those little border issues we have to clear up. But you have been doing a lot of great expansion pre-COVID, and I know that you're still sticking with some of that. A lot of our audience today, they're based in Israel, and you've made some exciting announcements about some of the new routes lately. And it looks like Virgin Atlantic is very committed to Tel Aviv. Can you share where that stands right now? And when you look to 2021, what does that look like?
Yes, we were proud to enter Israel last year, and it was a very successful launch. We operate daily from Tel Aviv to London with over 80% load factors. It's been an excellent start. Of course, we were forced to close the operation now due to the COVID crisis, but we're proud to announce we're back on the 6th of September with our Boeing 787 aircraft, state-of-the-art aircraft. We will be step-by-step increasing the frequency towards the daily, and by next March, next year, we'll go in double daily between Tel Aviv and London. And the reason why Israel is so crucially important, not only for the UK-Israel connectivity, but it's also the whole US travel network that we provide through Heathrow. Actually, it's quite interesting detail that is Tel Aviv to US is the 6th largest route pair over the North Atlantic, and it's the 5th biggest in terms of revenues. It's $1.6 billion annually. So it's extremely important city pair. Over 3,900 passengers every day pre-COVID traveled between Tel Aviv and US. So it's one of the biggest markets on the North Atlantic, and that's why it's great that we are back, and we're looking forward to provide even better service with the double daily as of next March.
Yeah, that's definitely exciting. So as we are coming upon our time together, my last question is really just want to sort of close your eyes and dream of those days of globetrotting again. Which is the first place you'd like to escape to when you feel like travel is back and you can go freely?
I have to say Southern California. I just love the, I have some friends there obviously, but also the weather, the lifestyle, just ambition to do new stuff, which you always have in LA. But I have to say Tel Aviv is an amazing city as well. Been there a couple of times. The entrepreneurship, the ambition to win new business, it's always there when you meet Israelis abroad or in Israel. So I'm looking forward to come back to Tel Aviv and Israel very soon as well.
I agree with you. I haven't been to Tel Aviv for about 20 years, and I think it's definitely time to go back. So maybe on Virgin Atlantic someday soon. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have this time together. I will pass it back on to Yonit because I was told to do so. We're out of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you, Juha. Invite to Tel Aviv is open. We'd love to see both of you here just as soon as possible. I promise the weather is perfectly beach-worthy, and we're really excited to see that the skies are opening again and once again be able to fly Virgin Atlantic in just a few weeks. So that's incredibly exciting. You know, the aviation industry is certainly a critical underpinning of the travel and tourism industry. But once you've landed someplace, you're probably going to have to stay. You're going to stay somewhere and you're going to be hosted in our new economy by new types of players. And so it's a pleasure to introduce two leading voices from the travel tech and tourism tech and hospitality tech industry based here in Israel. It's a pleasure to introduce Raviv Schwarz, the president and COO of Guesty, and David Sayag, the CTO and general manager in Israel of Sweet Inn, for our next panel. So as Vered and David are making their way through the interwebs and through the lines to come and join me on our proverbial stage here, I want to just thank everybody, Juha and Carolyn specifically, for leading that really interesting conversation. I think for me personally, I started feeling this crisis also when I was on a plane for the last time at the very end of February and realized that all of my flights that were upcoming and planned were had huge question marks around them. And since then, it seems like an entire generation has grown or changed because our work style, the way that we connect with one another has so fundamentally shifted. Vered, will you introduce yourself and Guesty and what it is that you're doing in the hospitality space?
Sure. So my name is Raviv Schwarz. I'm president and COO of Guesty. Guesty is a software platform for short-term rental property managers. That means that our customers are property managers managing professional hosting for short-term rentals. And we help them operationalize, optimize, and streamline their operations that are very complicated and involve a lot of tasks, from connecting to the different distribution channels to syncing their calendars, managing their guest communications, and so on and so forth.
David, tell us a little bit about Sweet Inn.
Yeah, so I'm David. I'm the CTO of Sweet Inn. Sweet Inn started in 2015 with an entrepreneur that, had a vision of kind of changing the way people travel. And, the thing he had in mind is that when Airbnb started to be all over the place, he noticed that the apartment and Airbnb, you get something that you don't get in in hotels. And it was, the local experience. You're not in places that, everyone is special for tourists, and you don't really see the local vibe and you don't feel it. And this one thing that you really noticed that, I wish I could have it. The price was better in apartments if you travel with the family and children, as opposed to taking 2 or 3 rooms in a hotel. But of course, the hotel has, still some advantages, like, you have concierge services, safety, you feel, more safe there. And it's very standardized. There's no way you go to an hotel and the air condition is not working, or, problems like that. So he said, what happened is, let's see if we can have, or we can combine those benefits from 2 worlds. And this is what, he did. So I joined him, when he had about 60 apartments all over Europe and Israel. Before the COVID, we had 750. We have less now. But, we are building our own technology. This is the emphasis, and, to make sure that we are doing 2 things. One, in the back office, making sure that everything is working as smoothly as possible, because it affects the experience of the guest eventually, even if they are not aware of it. And of course, in the front, what the guests are seeing, during the entire life cycle of, the booking until the checkout.
So Vered and David, you guys are both working, although in the short-term rental space, with different types of customers. So Vered, I'm interested in hearing from you. Your customers are the property owners or managers themselves. What were you hearing from them, as I'm sure they were going through cataclysmic changes and shifts in bookings in that end of Q1, beginning of Q2? How is it affecting your business? What are you hearing from your customers, those property managers?
So we have the advantage of operating in 80 countries, which means we started seeing the effect of, back then it was still the coronavirus. Very early. In APAC, followed by Europe, and only then in the US around mid-March. And when we contacted our US customers in February and say, hey, do you start to feel any impact of the virus? And they said, what are you talking about? It doesn't impact us. It's not even here. So the good thing about it is that it allowed us to prepare and learn from our customers, and also teach our customers in other locations what others have done to mitigate the risk. And what we've seen is, first of all, it was, of course, a very material impact on the business of short-term rentals. But funnily enough, or maybe not funnily enough, not as big as on the hotel industry. And the recovery is quicker as well, because if you have to travel domestically, and as we can see, there's still a lot of domestic travel once lockdowns are off, you usually would prefer a more secluded place with your own kitchen, not meeting 200 guests in the lobby or the elevator. So actually, we have seen our customers feel the pain, but not as bad as hotels. What we also saw that a lot of them were very creative in looking for new ways to understand their new audience, because all of a sudden you're marketing to a different audience of locals and not international travelers. Maybe you're marketing more to families. Maybe you're marketing more to business people that are looking to work away from home, but are looking for an alternative. And a lot of them have highlighted those special features and amenities in their spaces to allow for the new types of travelers to find their way, and did a lot of local marketing as well that was different than what we've seen before.
So how did you approach those customers of yours that were already onboarded onto the Guesty system? They're already working with you, and you had this sort of insider information or insights about what could work. How did you transition to being sort of this trusted, even consulting voice around managing through this crisis?
Yeah, first of all, it was, we also took, took the heat together with our customers and gave a lot of monetary relief during Q2 to really help them weather the storm and move out of it. And we understood it's a difficult time for them. We also opened an online coronavirus info center with a lot of resources and advice. We've done to date over 20 virtual meetups in different, well, it's all virtual, but still focused on different geographies, focused on different audiences to really help the ecosystem work together and find ways to resolve this issue. And we saw a lot of interest from our customers to share, to talk, to find ways to work together and help this crisis.
That's great.
You know.
David, I'm interested, your customers, first of all, you're working directly with customers, with travelers themselves. And I know you usually are working with more high-end travelers or business travelers, people who are coming for, as you said, sort of the hotel experience, but with the benefits of their own space and their own sort of kitchens and apartments and the like. And I have to admit, I myself have been a Suite Inn customer and had a wonderful experience in your spaces as well. How did you experience the COVID crisis? Did it come at a bang? Was it something that was happening over a period of time? And how did you adjust then the business itself or the product itself in order to accommodate those pretty dramatic changes?
Yeah, so I think first time we've noticed that, something bad is coming is when the World Mobile Conference in Barcelona in February, I think it was planned for February, was canceled. So we start seeing cancellations starting in January because, many people that were supposed to come there were coming from China. So quite quickly we have noticed that, or relatively quickly, we have noticed that. And I have to say that, I don't know what exactly happened, but we had a feeling that this is not something that's going to disappear after a week or two, and we started taking action quite quickly, fortunately, and it changes almost everything. I mean, but you know what? Most of the things when you look back today, you say we should have done this anyway. Okay. Almost everything. I cannot say that, we have changed something or did something that was never in a roadmap, that was never planned, either in terms of technology or in terms of, human resources and the way, we operate, but it expedited everything. We took actions, with more certainty, and just, done things. The team, of course, is much smaller. And you know what? We are not doing less in the same ratio. So this is one thing I think we have seen. The technology was one of the things we always wanted to do, and we did in many aspects is, automation. Because one of the things we want to change in this world of travel is to make things much more automated. This industry is really behind, comparing to many other industries. I like a friend of mine say, what happens if Uber did the travel, space? So everything would look different. So, kind of Uberizing things. Hotel, for example, today, you want to, come early, make an early check-in. And you know what? In many cases, the room is probably ready and empty and it's cleaned, but they don't have the basic, automation behind it, at least, many of them. So they can message you, you know what? You can check in at 7 a.m. instead of 3 p.m. So many things like that were in our plans anyway. And we keep working on it. We keep making sure that everything is being automated, also in the back office. those of us or that, never seen what's going on, Vered, talked about streamlining. It's a huge, size of teams and efforts and work that, for every booking, payments and syncing and issues and whatnot, and maintenance issues and everything like that. And there's a lot of going on behind the scenes and under the hood. And we are using technology to make sure that those things are being, streamlined and automated as much as possible. And the effect of it is also related to the COVID, because if we can do the same things with much smaller team, so, this is anyway what we wanted to do. So the COVID in a way helped us pushing this, more quickly.
So I love that you're talking about the team here, because I think that there's obviously the industry's changing, maybe some of the role that you play for your customers is changing or needs to adjust, whether it's now being a trusted voice and having to help steer and lead, or identifying new opportunities for the product. But I have to imagine that your own personal work style or leadership style had to change as well. From the bit I do know of each of you, I know that you often are traveling and you often are spending time outside of the country, and you're managing teams and projects that are outside of your home locale. How has your personal leadership or team style been affected by this? And what do you think you're going to keep, and what are you looking to get back as soon as you can? Sarah, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. So for us, we have a global team in 8 offices, and naturally, I always said, being in the tech industry for a long time, that nothing beats a face-to-face. And I always encourage teams to travel. We did all the training for new employees from all offices in the Tel Aviv office to make sure that they're immersed in the company culture. And all of a sudden, all that's gone, right? So at first, I think you're really concerned and like, what am I going to do? It's like all different. But then we adopted a lot of changes that I think some of them, again, are going to keep and are for the best. And come to think about it, I realized while I was starting to hold meeting via Zoom, that instead of having people in headquarters in a room, and then people in Zoom trying to listen in and trying to be part of the conversation, all of a sudden we managed to create a really flat organization.
You're all in the same playing field. Everyone's
voice and the same square frame. And I felt that for remote offices, it actually made them feel better and more part of the conversation. And we thought that it would really teach us a lot in terms of internal communications and how to continue and manage sessions going forward. We are mostly working from home at this time, and we run a survey with our employees asking them, post-corona, what would you like to do? Do you want to go back to the office? Do you want to stay at home? Do you want a mixture? Only 3% said that they want to work from the office full time after the coronavirus. The rest was, I think most of them was a combination, meaning not just working from home, but probably 2 days here, 3 days there, or the opposite. Because we do want that human connection. We do want to spend time together. But I do believe we'll adopt that notion of flexibility and giving employees more space to choose their work style and home office balance, because it really worked for us and productivity was not affected at all.
What about you, David? How is it leading a large tech team when you don't get to see them every day?
Yeah, so just to comment on what Vered said, she said 3% say that they would like to come back 5 days. I had 1.5% saying they want to come 7 days a week to the office.
Sometimes too much of home is really too much of home.
Yeah. I think that the challenge, when you manage large team is always there. I mean, I've been in the industry of managing tech teams almost over 20 years now, and with some of the really large companies, and it's always a challenge. you know, the debates about do we have an open space or separate rooms or whatever, this is an ongoing. And I like, you know, what Facebook said, you know, break things and move fast. So the COVID kind of broke everything and we had to move fast. We had, you know, a lot of discussions around it because the communication is really critical. You know, how smoothly it flows between the teams, you know, like designers, you know, from idea to production, basically. And if it goes smoothly, so things are working, you know, very well and everyone is happy. Also, you know, there was the thing that I think the COVID and working from home kind of made it better or clearer to me as a manager. You know, what space you live when you define something, a task, or you know, it could be big or small, but you want to give people some space to be creative. You don't want to be too much detailed. And so you want to plan, but you want to plan it and leave some spaces so they can, you know, fill the gaps and be creative. And sometimes just by asking questions, oh, you know what, there's a gap here. What should we do? Let's talk about it. And working in the office, you know, it was a bit different because you always had the chance, you know, to have those face-to-face meetings and in the corridors and people talked and things not always were kind of very accurate and very, you know, here with Zoom, you have to be, the plan have to be much, you know, clearer, at least, you know, the high level. Okay, and the building blocks needs to be there. And we have those, you know, 2 meetings a day, which are, you know, nailed to the calendars, morning and evening. And of course, everyone can pick up Zoom and ask us to join to another meeting, but people became much more kind of focused in the morning meeting, trying to understand, yeah, what is it that we need to do today? And it's different. And for me, you know, it's planning ahead, and my managers plan ahead with more building blocks, leave some gaps. Everything looks better. I have to say, you know, we are much more efficient than we used to be, and with a smaller team.
So a last question for both of you is, where is in fact the future of your business? Vered, you alluded, for example, to the growth of the domestic travel, that while that's being, according to regulations, enabled before the skies were open, do you see that as being sort of a strategic growth opportunity for you and your customers? Is that sort of where you're thinking about the next product lines around domestic travel, or do you expect to see some different changes in the industry that will enable future growth?
Yeah, first of all, I think that over the past few years, and short-term rentals have been with us for a couple of decades, but really came into play with Airbnb highlighting this type of hospitality trend about 10 years ago. It's been growing exponentially over the past 10 years and outpacing the growth of the hotel industry. I believe that COVID-19 actually accelerated that trend and made everyone realize that it is a comparable solution to the hotels. And I believe that a lot of people that had to go with short-term rentals during COVID will continue with the comfort of short-term rentals following COVID-19, because it has the comfort of home with a lot of amenities that you can't find in hotels, with more space, with more ability to work in your suite of the short-term rental. And on the other hand, we are seeing it professionalize and becoming more consistent. So if in the past you were concerned about having, you know, taking a short-term rental and finding out it's a dump and it's not what you expected, now there's a lot of professionals like Sweden that offer you that consistent approach that you can trust. So I do believe that at the end of the day, we will go back to international travel. I'm very optimistic. I believe we'll see everything bouncing back in 2021. And although there is more domestic travel. Now, it will balance out and be both domestic and international. But we did use this time to introduce new audiences to short-term rentals that didn't think of using it in the past.
Mm-hmm. David, how are you guys looking at the product lineup going forward, or at the pipeline that you're looking to establish here? Where does the growth of Sweden come from?
Yeah, so first of all, I agree with what, everything Vered said. For us, a few things. I'll start with the end. We see a lot of opportunities. We see a lot of real estate, in the most beautiful places, and the prices are going down. And we want to take up to it as well. And this is one of the things we will do. At the same time, I think if before the COVID, companies that did most of the thing or many of the operations manually, they probably will not survive. It's going to be almost, impossible because of the cost. So I'm talking about the next, I don't know, year and a half or two. We have to be very efficient, do the same or even more with less people. So technology, automation, this is really a key to survive and to exist. We know the nice thing about it is that it's not only affecting, the cost structure, but also the end user, the guest will benefit. Because whenever things are being done automatically and not manually by team, it affects the experience of the user. So this is really where we are investing, and we want to benefit, from both worlds, the better guest experience and lower cost for the operation. The last thing is we are making new, we're basically having new models that we didn't have in the past. We wanted to have, but we have it. We just not just want that. Master lease is a kind of a model that the risk is the highest risk, but the revenues are really high. Now we are trying to do something in the middle, reduce the risk, less revenues, but that's fine. And so we're going to have more, I guess we're going to see it in the industry as well, not only Sweden, more management models, kind of rev sharing with owners and, different models that maybe weren't there before the COVID.
David, Vered, thank you so much. I don't take it for granted that this is a actually hopeful and positive conversation that we're having about the travel and hospitality industry. I think if we had broached this topic 3-4 months ago when we were all still truly locked down in our own homes, there was a very different vibe and feel, and it's incredible to hear both about the opportunities for this growth. And if I take a comment that Carolyn made in the earlier session about committing to geographic distribution and understanding that our work and lifestyles are changing, such that we are, while we might be moving around, we're going to be staying places for longer and working from a distributed model from different locations. It's incredible to see the opportunities that Guesty and Sweden are making available to the broader public, and in that way sort of thinking creatively and using technology in a new way. So thank you, David. Thank you, Vered, for sharing your insights and thoughts. Really do appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure to invite Siobhan DeLay to join me here. Siobhan is the CEO of MassChallenge, based out of the US. And Siobhan, over to you to talk a little bit about where we are and who we are.
Thanks, Yoni. Thanks so much, everyone, for coming. We've enjoyed producing this summit series so much this summer. This idea that wasn't even an idea 6 months ago, that brings together the power of our global community to look at industries that are evolving, to see what the future may look like. I've taken from every single one of these some lessons for my business, even if I'm not in the same industry, and have been inspired by the optimism and resilience of all of our partners who have presented. So in May, we had hospitals and healthcare startups who were talking about combating COVID. In June, we talked about the future of work with the CIO of Zoom. We had people from Cyber Reason and Ingram Micro. In July, we had startups from the financial industry, companies that are growing and raising capital even in this crazy time, along with corporations who are supporting financial startups like Fidelity or AARP. And today we got a first class seat in the front row, talking about the travel and hospitality industries and sort of thinking about what the future may take. So would also like to shine a spotlight on a dozen or more dozens of MassChallenge global startups tackling travel tech. Right in the chat section right now, you'll see a link to information where you can get more. And just thank you all for being part of this community. As you can see, a lot of the power of what MassChallenge does is bring people together from all different parts of the world, all different parts of the ecosystem, and bringing it together is what's most inspiring. So thanks so much for being part of this. And Yonit, if you want to close us out.
Yeah, thanks, Siobhan. I think that the lessons that we've learned over the course of the last several months are really profound. This is a global crisis that we're all dealing with, and the ultimate solutions are going to come from global connections, from bringing together thought leaders in established industries with startups who are taking new approaches to their to tackling global challenges. And so we're really excited as MassChallenge to support the way that these entrepreneurs can connect with corporate partners and with those thought leaders, and to help innovation leaders establish their innovation strategy, connect with the up and coming emerging leaders, technologists, and solution setters all around the world. In every one of our conferences, we've been able to bring voices from at least 2 to 3 continents, and the perspectives that they're sharing have been really insightful to help all of us learn about how to think about the future of our industries, whether it's one that we're dealing with day to day, ones that we're consuming, or ones that we're hoping to get more involved with. Love to share just a few upcoming events. We do have the MassChallenge FinTech 2021 launch happening on September 9th. That will again be a virtual event, Eastern time, 3:30 to 5:30. You can learn more at our website. We have an application launch for the health tech sector, one of the most important sectors ever, and certainly one that's going through incredible dynamism and changes that will be happening the following day on September 10th. And virtual awards where we'll be crowning the top startups in the US who are creating solutions to major challenges on October 22nd. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for joining us. And do check out some of the travel tech companies that are making a difference today, especially today during challenging times, in order to help us all get to know the world around us, experience different and new places and people, and continue connecting us in fundamental ways to one another and around the world. Thanks again. Have a good rest of your day, your evening, your afternoon, and farewell.